This guy peeing his pants in fear is Kaneki Ken. His main response to difficult situations is freaking out and falling to the floor crying. It may seem like having such a thin-skinned protagonist would get old quickly, but surprisingly, it doesn't. He's actually a great character. Kaneki manages to do more for Tokyo Ghoul's world building and narrative being a sobbing mess than he ever could as a stronger, nobler character. To understand how, we need to take a step back for some extra context first. Tokyo Ghoul is set in a modern-day alternate universe Japan, the main difference being the existence of ghouls, a race of humanoid creatures that can only subsist off of human flesh. Although calling them humanoid is almost disingenuous, because ghouls are human. Not in the literal sense, but aside from dietary restraints, humans and ghouls are nearly identical. Intellectually and emotionally, they're the same. Genetically, humans and ghouls are compatible enough to produce viable offspring. And the one food, aside from human meat, ghouls are able to digest is other ghouls. But most importantly for us today, organ transplants between the two are possible. Not without consequence, mind you. Consequences Kaneki is about to become intimately familiar with. Bookish and shy, Kaneki is an average college student going through the motions of undergraduate academia. As a young man, girls are starting to interest him, and his crush happens to frequent a nearby cafe. She's gorgeous, but most importantly, also an avid reader. They're even reading the same book. How could things get any better? But Kaneki is too timid to confront her directly, so admiring her from a distance is all the courage he can muster. His life, like a falling book, is about to crash around him, changing him forever. It's like a scene out of every cheesy rom-com. A slight bump, a dropped object, a conversation starter. What a perfect turn of events. Perhaps too perfect, too rehearsed. This woman isn't what she seems, yet Kaneki and his fragile, innocent heart can't see the trap snapping around him. His survival comes not as a result of some quick wit or will to survive, but fortune. However fortunate one could consider a human transplanted with ghoul organs to be. His kidneys are doing something to the rest of his body. They're changing him, reforming him, turning him into a ghoul. To say that he survived his encounter with Rize would be incorrect. He died that day, not as a living being, but as a human. Food becomes unpalatable. Dishes he once loved, now nothing but gastronomic torture. The lines between man and meat blur into a gray haze. Kaneki's body knows what it wants. It needs to feed. Eventually, his new reality can no longer be denied. It's here that Kaneki shatters. A ghoul's life is a brutal and often brief one, forced to find shelter in a human world while competing with others of their kind. It's no wonder why an innocent boy would struggle to adapt, regardless of the help given to him. It's important to note that Kaneki didn't have to be so meek. As an author, you have complete control over how your characters behave, so why write him like this? Ishida could have made Kaneki a stoic character that quickly accepts their new existence, but they didn't. Kaneki is a spineless coward that's too afraid to do anything other than bemoan over ethical conundrums. Yet, I wouldn't have him any other way. Kaneki is a deeply flawed human being. Well, half ghoul, but that's kind of the point. A protagonist is a character that we experience the story alongside. They don't have to be good, bad, or even involved with the events of the narrative. Protagonists merely act as our point of connection to the world they inhabit. We share their point of view in a very literal sense, so their personality and beliefs tinting how we interpret the story is almost a foregone conclusion. Kaneki's shortcomings guide our understanding of ghouls. His constant mental breakdowns prime us to see life as a ghoul to be monstrous and evil. Violence is inescapable when murder feeds and competition is high. The stomach-churning act of eating human flesh, enduring maddening ghoulish hunger, and struggling to pass as a human. He takes to them all like a fish to the desert. I mean, the man can't even make a good cup of coffee. But it's because of his failures that we can grasp how difficult being a ghoul is. Have you ever watched an artist sketch or an athlete perform and said to yourself, that doesn't look so hard, only to try it and screw it up so badly it's embarrassing? When something is done properly, it looks deceptively simple. That same disconnect would happen if the much more capable Toka or Mr. Yoshimura were Tokyo Ghoul's protagonist. Kaneki's influence doesn't stop there. His weaknesses and flaws are integral to the plot. At its most basic, his inability to fight or take a life shapes critical events. The most he can do for Hanami is cover her eyes while he watches her mother get murdered. If someone else was there instead of him, they could have saved her. Similarly, but opposite, investigator Amon owes his life to Kaneki's overly gentle nature. This encounter would leave a permanent dent on Amon's anti-ghoul ideology. Most significantly, it allows Jason reason to capture him. But character flaws aren't limited to impacting individual story beats. A person's largest limitations are the places they can experience the most growth after all. In the same way Kaneki's flaws contextualize world building and impact important moments, the journey overcoming them sculpts Tokyo Ghoul's plot as a whole. Storytelling has a profound ability to demonstrate a person's growth over time. Jason's torture shreds the last of Kaneki's humanity. There's no one to protect him, nobody to save him. Kaneki must learn to protect himself or perish. Finally embracing his inner ghoul, he breaks free from his restraints, mental and physical. Kaneki is now liberated from his dependency. He's gained the strength to bring the fight to his enemies. He's able to stand up for himself, but secretly he fights only for himself. A character confronting their weaknesses and becoming stronger or failing is the very basis of a character arc. How and what way a character can grow depends on their flaws. For Kaneki, it's learning to be less selfish and scared, so character flaws directly contribute to how character arcs develop. And what is a narrative other than a collection of character arcs? This means that when writing or consuming a work, character shortcomings are vital to overall structure and meaning. As stated earlier, the protagonist often has the largest impact on how we experience a story, since we share their point of view. Kaneki is characterized as a naive, timid, and weak boy because it directly juxtaposes the brutal and ugly world he inhabits. Tokyo Ghoul is a complex story that has several messages, but among them is that life is unfair and violence is tragic and unnecessary, but nearly unavoidable. Although, despite this grim reality, if we work together, we can ease the world's hardships. Matching character flaws to meaning enhances the message greatly. Kaneki was ultimately too concerned with protecting himself to make any choices that weren't self-serving. As a result, he let the people closest to him get hurt. It's preventable and awful, but extremely Tokyo Ghoul. This principle also applies to strong characters. Take Berserk's Guts for example. Guts is often viewed as a wrathful killing machine hell-bent on avenging his former colleagues, but in reality he's a lonely man masking his sorrow in blood. His hatred towards Griffith gives him the will to keep living while simultaneously trapping him in the past. Guts is doomed to a life endlessly hounded by monsters while stubbornly refusing to die until he's had his revenge. Although he wants something more than revenge, he yearns for a place where he belongs, something to truly give his life meaning. Casca and his found family gives him that purpose. Even though Guts' barely controllable rage allows him to hack through the endless legions of demons that pursue him, it comes at a cost. It endangers the lives of his loved ones. It's a wolf that will destroy everything between it and Griffith. If Guts were to lose himself, it would take everything from him. Resentment is his greatest strength, but it's also his closest enemy. This theme is further explored by the Berserker armor, a magical suit of plate that manifests his darkest desires in exchange for power. The dramatic and symbolic fight scenes with the Berserker armor visualize how resentment and a need for retribution can drive a person to ruin themselves. Occasionally, Guts' stoic composure cracks, revealing the despair buried in his heart. These small glimpses into the toll his life of hatred and fighting has had on him not only make him feel more human, but they do more for the manga's themes of endurance, trauma, and revenge than any flawless character ever could. Persistence isn't mystically avoiding adversity, it's knowing how to weather the storm. Mirua letting readers see Guts at his lowest allows us to sympathize with a man that is otherwise a brick wall. We also get to experience his intrusive thoughts and his feelings of inadequacy and the temptation to abandon everything and kill Griffith no matter the cost. More significantly, these urges win out. Guts attacks Casca in a momentary hysteria. He can't always control the Berserker armor. We feel Guts' struggle through his shortcomings. If he were perfect, there would be nothing to relate to. Now, for all the praise I've been giving heavily troubled characters, I want to take a moment to emphasize that creating a miserable little guy and putting them in the torture chamber isn't inherently good storytelling or character design. Understanding what not to do is just as important as knowing what works. Perhaps the most well-known and best example of misusing character flaws is Mirai Niki's main character, Yukiteru Amano. This isn't a commentary on the show as a whole, but Yuki is one of the least likable protagonists in anime. Similar to Kaneki in the first few chapters of Tokyo Ghoul, Yuki spends most of his time crying and whining. The difference is this keeps up for the complete duration of the show. By around chapter 13, Kaneki has already started to mellow out and integrate into his circumstance. He never shakes his fear entirely, but Kaneki still develops considerably from the first chapter to the last. As for Yuki, he arguably gets more insufferable. Mirai Nikki isn't the type of narrative that wants to tell some grand overarching message either. The most profound takeaway one could reasonably get from it is that crazy girls are kind of hot, I guess. The story exists solely for entertainment. That's perfectly okay. I'm not going to be a snob and claim that only art with some deep philosophical meaning is valid. Sometimes we just want to escape reality. If watching a pink-haired psycho stab people brings you joy, more power to you. The real issue with Yuki's constant screaming is that it's annoying. Yuki simply makes Mirai Nikki less enjoyable to watch. His inability to progress beyond "this situation is so scary, I don't know what to do" saps a lot of the dumb fun out of the series. A bunch of people who can tell the future in unique and limited ways have to kill each other? Cool, sounds like a great time. And it would be if there wasn't the human equivalent of a parrot on your shoulder crying in your ear the whole time. Character flaws are an extremely powerful tool. They reinforce plot themes, give satisfying character arcs, and so much more. But they can be detrimental. Yuki's flaws don't align with Mirai Nikki's primary goal of being entertaining. They only hinder viewer experience. Functionally, Yuki's helplessness exists to necessitate him needing Yuno's help, as the useless boy and his stalker-savior dynamic is the basis of the show. However, such an abrasive and intrusive method wasn't a great way to make Yuki dependent on Yuno. It wouldn't take much to justify her interventions without Yuki's incessant complaining. A few failed attempts to fight on his own would be more than enough. Changing Yuki so that he's hesitant to put himself in danger and poor at dealing with foes on his own but more courageous and adaptable would fix his abysmal character appeal while still keeping plot structure intact. Character design is a vast, nuanced topic that this video only begins to scratch the surface of, but character flaws and limitations are disproportionately important. Stories without complications or setbacks are often linear and boring. People who have perfect control over their emotions and are capable of achieving anything they want are equally uninteresting. Adding negative traits or weaknesses to characters brings them to life like shading and illustration. Narratives are told through characters. Having interesting and well-fitting inhabitants naturally makes the world they inhabit more dynamic and cohesive. When starting with a strong cast of characters, stories can almost write themselves. Knowing who your characters are has its uses, yet defining what they're not can be more impactful. Guts is not invincible. Kaneki is not altruistic, and Yuki is not likable.